All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. Now, we had some technical difficulties earlier, but I'm going to give this a try one more time as I want to talk about David Ortiz, Big Papi, getting elected to Cooperstown and the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, he did it on the first ballot. He got 77.9% of the vote, and he's the only modern era player that made it. He's going to join Gil Hodges, Tony Oliva, Minnie Minoso, Jim Cott, Bud Fowler, and Buck O'Neill this summer for enshrinement in Cooperstown. And when you think about Ortiz's career, it's a very interesting journey because after flaming out with the Minnesota Twins for 6 seasons, Ortiz got a reprieve with the Boston Red Sox, and he makes the most of it as he batted 288 with 31 homers and 101 runs batted in for the Sox in 2003. Now, the Red Sox would fall one game short of making the World Series that year as they lost a heartbreaker in Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS to the rival New York Yankees. Now, Boston would come back and face the Yankees in the ALCS once again in 2004. They then found themselves down 3-0 in that series before they got things going. And you think about the bat of Ortiz and what he meant to the Red Sox in both games 4 and 5 to help force the series back to the Bronx. Then the series was tied at 3, and then Ortiz got the party started for the Red Sox in the top of the first inning with a 2-run homer, and they never looked back as they became the first and only MLB team to erase an 0-3 series deficit. They went on to sweep the St. Louis Cardinals in the World Series, and prior to that, Ortiz was the MVP of the ALCS that year. At this point, Ortiz had basically established himself as one of the game's best power hitters. He also had a knack for coming through in the clutch. And then in 2006, we saw Ortiz lead the American League in home runs with 54 while also driving in 137 runs. He would then help Boston once again win the World Series in 2007. They found themselves down 3-1 in the ALCS that year to Cleveland before they rallied to win the next three. And then they go on to sweep the Colorado Rockies in the Fall Classic. Now, in the mid 2000s, Ortiz found himself as a perennial MVP candidate in the American League. But the only thing that held him back was the fact that he was only a designated hitter. Now, Big Papi stepping to the forefront when the city and the Red Sox organization needed him in 2013 was huge. And of course, that was coming on the heels of the tragedy at the Boston Marathon. Now, Boston would finish with the best record in the American League that year, and they made the playoffs. They were down 1-0 in the ALCS to the Detroit Tigers. And then, of course, Big Papi's grand slam in the bottom of the eighth helped the Red Sox win that game, and it gave them the momentum that they needed to go on and win the Fall Classic. Now, in that Fall Classic, David Ortiz had a World Series for the ages as he batted 688 with a pair of home runs and 6 runs batted in. And then in that series, the Red Sox found themselves down 2-1 in the series to St. Louis before Papi rallied them. I mean, you go back and watch that series, and Ortiz was right there, had everybody together in the dugout during the game in Game 4. The Red Sox got going, and the rest is history. You think about it, Papi became an ambassador for MLB and the Red Sox throughout his career, as he was one of the most recognizable faces in Major League Baseball during his era. 541 career home runs. That's 17th all time in MLB history, while his 1,768 runs batted in are 23rd. And Ortiz is just one of only 7 players to have more than 2,000 hits in a Red Sox uniform. Only Ted Williams, who hit 521 home runs with the Red Sox, hit more than Ortiz, who has 483. And only Yaz and Ted Williams have more runs batted in for the Red Sox than Big Papi did. Now, Ortiz is a Boston sports legend in a city that is littered with great players. And you think about some of the great sports legends that come out of Boston or play for the Boston teams, rather. Bill Russell, Tom Brady, Raymond Bork, Bobby Orr, and Larry Bird. And you can have whatever echelon that you want to put those guys on. But the thing is, David Ortiz is definitely in that conversation. You look at it and you ask yourself, where does Ortiz rank among all-time great Red Sox players? He's right up there. I mean, you think about some of the great players that have played for this organization over the years: Ted Williams, Carl Yastrzemski, Jim Rice, Dwight Evans, Wade Boggs. Big Papi's right in that mix. And it's amazing that after for so many years, Juan Marichal was the only player from the Dominican Republic to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And that's saying a lot from the standpoint that, so many good, great players have come from the Dominican Republic to play Major League Baseball. And Marichal was the only one for so many years to be in the Hall. Now we've seen Pedro Martinez get in, Vlad Guerrero, and now David Ortiz is joining them as well. Now, on the flip side, this was the final year on the ballot for Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, and Kurt Schilling. And you have to ask yourself, will we ever see them get in? In recent years, Schilling, Clemens, and Bonds have been receiving more votes. Sosa, I think it's a long shot. I think Clemens, Bonds, and Schilling will get in at some point through a veterans committee. It's one of those where I wouldn't be surprised if they took a step back for a few years and then they started to get some sentiment and people were going for them again. But I mean, say what you want, but it's hard to argue what Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens did on the baseball diamond pre-peds. And then like in the case of Schilling, you cannot deny what he did as a player. Some people are going to hold it against him for some of the things that he said and tweeted about. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But it's going to be interesting to see if they get in eventually one day. But nonetheless, this is all about Big Papi. He deserves to be there. We saw the designated hitter barrier get broken down with Edgar Martinez recently, and I think that really paved the way for David Ortiz. But when you look at what David Ortiz did on the baseball diamond and what he meant to the game of baseball, it was very hard to deny Big Papi his proper place in Cooperstown. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.